Good afternoon, everyone. Let's call to order. Please silence your cell phones. Town clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Commissioner Gossick Seidman,
Present.
Vice Mayor Moore,
Present.
Town Attorney Tercivia.
Here.
Town Manager Labadie.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, next we move on to the approval of the agenda, and I'm aware of three changes. Maybe I'll review the three changes and I'll ask if there are any additional
Okay.
changes. Okay. First one, staff is requesting that item 11B, resolution number 2022-015 under new business to be moved under item 5A under presentations and proclamations. The second change is that staff is requesting the fire rescue implementation update to be added to the agenda as item 10A under unfinished business. And then I'm requesting that item 11A, which has to do with the interlocal agreement with Gulfstream for the building services, to be moved to the August 4th Town Commission special meeting, which is at noon on Thursday. And the reason for that is the mayor couldn't be here today, and he wanted to be part of that discussion. So those are the three changes I had. Are there any other changes?
That was changed.
Other changes?
Oh, good.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Is there
second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now moving on to item 5, presentations and proclamations. A, resolution number 2022-015, a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, ratifying the selection, appointments, and term of office of members of the Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board and providing for an effective date. And we have Barbara Nessel, who's joining us virtually. Welcome. And so I'd like to start with interviews by the commission. So John, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. I'm just turning. So Barbara, nice meeting you.
Very nice
You-
to meet you all. Good afternoon.
You have a most impressive background. I mean, honestly, you jump off the paper. So I am so glad that you've applied for this.
Thank you.
And I'm just trying to, wait 1 minute. The changes have messed me up here.
It's formally 10B. Excuse me, 11, it's formally
Then I might have.
11.
Package. This is on
Hold on. Give me 1 second.
32,
It is-
yeah.
52.
Resume is 5-9. Resume is 5-9, 59.
Okay. So, first of all, welcome from Massachusetts. As a matter of fact, I think I was a neighbor. I lived in South Natick. So I can appreciate your background, to say the least. Were you ever involved in the Boston Marathon by any chance?
Me? No, never. I'm not a runner.
No, okay.
More
Well-
a biker and swimmer.
Well, again, because you have such a dramatic resume and your background, education and so forth, maybe again, for the audience, for our residents, you can detail for us, why you're doing this, why you feel that this is important for you, and what you can contribute. I know that kind of is open-ended, but I'd like to turn the floor over to you in that regard.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me in this meeting, giving me the opportunity to join despite me being in Wellfleet, Massachusetts, in the Cape Cod. Beautiful place. And this is actually why I'm applying. I love nature. I love animals. I've always been kind of a green person growing up in Switzerland in the mountains. I've always cherished nature, skiing in the winter, ice skating outdoors on lakes, in the summer, swimming in lakes, hiking in the mountains. So I've always been very nature oriented, biking to work all over the place. You've seen in my CV, I've lived in multiple places like London, Boston, San Francisco, Zurich, and so forth. Everywhere I was biking. I just love exercise and nature. My background, I'm a lawyer. I was born and raised in Zurich, graduated from the University of Zurich, then did a couple of jobs from clerking for judges to international lawyer jobs at Baker McKenzie and White and Case. These are kind of the biggest law firms that I worked for. I also was general GC, General Counsel of international organizations. I did an MBA, an international MBA, and then moved more into strategy and business development roles, most recently at White and Case, where I was building up their M&A and private equity business in Europe and was responsible for that. Then we moved to the US, and for green card or for visa reasons, I didn't have a green card. I couldn't work, which was actually a blessing because I'm as you can see from my CV, a committed lawyer. I was always working 18 hours a day, and all of a sudden I moved to the US and couldn't work at all because I wasn't allowed to. And that's when I started volunteering more than I did before. So in London, I was in the Norland Conservation Commission. I was helping with pedestrian and biking and making sure trees stay in London, kind of from a natural resource standpoint. But I was busy. But then when we moved to the US, I had the chance to give a lot more time and give back to the community, which I really love to do. We were saving Webster Woods, which I would say is probably my biggest achievement in my life when it comes to nature preservation. Webster Woods is probably 20 or 30 acres that we could save from Boston College, who wanted to build over it. And we were the Friends of Webster Woods, about 300 neighbors. I was one of them, one of the leading ones in the team, working with a couple of professors to make sure that we can save the woods. And so in the end, the city took eminent domain. And we were working with the city. So that was a really good example of working with the city as neighbors to get nature conservation done. I was also a leader or co-leader with my friend Wendy of the Green Team in the Newton Public Schools of Mason Rice. Newton Center is the biggest part of Newton. We were leading that team. And I'm proud to say that our students have on multiple occasions won an award by Governor Baker in Massachusetts. So we multiple times could go to the State House and collect those prizes, which I'm very proud of our students at this Newton school. They were very environmentally and nature oriented. Safe routes to school is another example where I was making sure kids can walk to school and bike to school safely, which also indirectly has to do with nature. So that's kind of a summary of what I've done and what can I contribute. To be honest, do I know herons and hawks and turtles in details? No, but I'm sitting on my ocean view, balcony, and I observe nature every morning, and I'm just so grateful to live in Highland Beach. Completely different nature. And I have to admit, it's not the nature I know. I grew up in the mountains. I was active in Massachusetts. But I'm thrilled to learn, and I'm thrilled to help with, dunes restoration, turtle programs, anything that you need to preserve our wonderful environment that we have in Highland Beach and Boca Raton and in the area.
Well, you're going to learn an awful lot about turtles. And it was amazing. Last week I was in Chatham and Wellfleet and Osterville and so forth. And lo and behold, I went on the sandbars off of Chatham, and I ran into a loggerhead that was chomped on by a great white. I've got the video and all that sort of thing, but I never thought I would run into a loggerhead when I'm walking down the beach here just day before yesterday, and I'm finding little loggerhead turtles that couldn't make it over the sawgrass, and they get caught and tangled it and they die. So there's a lot to to learn and a lot that can be done to help. I know trustees of reservations is very active in the Northeast, as I was part of that as well. Newton, as I said, I know very much about Newton, having lived there. I just think, honestly, you're a great candidate. I appreciate your background. I also worked in Zurich for 5 years, so I have not found yet a Swiss person who wasn't active outdoors and very concerned about the environment. And I've hiked with a lot of them. So I appreciate your background. I welcome you, and I have no further questions.
Thank you.
I agree with John. Your background is amazing. I think that you are in a perfect position to help us set up an education program for maintaining and restoring the dunes. And I know it may take some research because you're not familiar with it, but I live here and I'm not familiar with what plants restore the dunes as opposed to let them be swept away by the ocean. And that's really our most pressing issue, is if we can maintain those dunes, we can maintain our beaches. People cleaning up, absolutely, you want people to clean up, but you can't make people do that. But we may be able to make people to plant the right things to preserve the dunes. And with your interests and your background in education, I don't think we could ask for a better candidate. Thank you for applying.
Thank you.
Yes, I echo my colleagues' comments. You're an amazing woman and your resume is beautiful. I actually looked up the woods there and Googled what they look like, and the rock formations are outstanding. I don't know if that was granite or what, but it had outcroppings that looked like they'd been weathered down, and it was just beautiful. And thank heavens they weren't leveled for housing. And so I also wanted to add that we certainly need nature lovers. Most of us living in town appreciate the nature and the love and the beauty of it, but this is even better to have someone who's got time and energy for it. So I appreciate that. As you continue to learn about it, I would like to add in, don't forget our coral reefs and our beaches below the ocean there, because they're our first line of defense against storms, as is the beach, which we enjoy beautifully in case we get storms. We have to continue to remember that they're our first line of defense. And I think the board has done some great things for us, and maybe we all as a community continue to work on getting the right plants in there and anchoring the sand and so forth. So I'd love to have you on board, and I appreciate your offering. So yes, from me.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Barbara. I echo everyone's comments so far, and I'm really excited that you volunteered for this board. And I think it's really exciting, the potential that we have having you on board. So thank you very much for volunteering. So is there a motion to approve resolution number 2022-015?
I move we approve resolution number 2022-015.
I second that.
Okay, great. Town clerk, may we have a roll?
We can do it all in favor.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, so public comments are now open. So each speaker has 5 minutes, and all comments will be directed to the commission as a body through the presiding officer. So please, okay, Jack, please come to the podium. And please state your first and last name.
First, I would like to say Ms. Lois Feldman has graciously agreed to give me her 5 minutes time. So I would have 10 minutes to speak. My name is Jack Halpern. I live at 4511 South Ocean Boulevard, and I've been a resident in Highland Beach now for 26 years. I'm currently the president of the Committee to Save Highland Beach, a committee based here in Highland Beach that was formed approximately 4 years ago when the town commission proposed the approximately $46 million bond issue called Streetscape. We have continued to be involved in Highland Beach and some of the elections therein as town residents and voters. It was highly disappointing to me to read over the weekend from the proposed agenda, a plan to provide building department services to include permits and conducting inspections for the municipality of Gulfstream. I had attended meetings prior, either in person or by internet. I heard no discussion whatsoever of this proposed plan to support Gulfstream. Only going through every meeting for the last 2 months, the agendas, the minutes, and the audio, was I able to understand how this came about. The one thing I could find was 2 meetings, neither which were listed on this agenda, neither which were listed on the agenda for those 2 meetings. The June 21st meeting with notes of meetings stated from the town manager report, quote, he spoke about the town of Gulfstream interest in partnering with Highland Beach for building department services. That was the only thing of the notes of meeting. I went into the audio of that June 21st meeting. At the end of that meeting, approximately 2.5 to 3 hours, the town manager discussed developing an agreement with Gulfstream to provide building-related services. Our town manager offered these services to support Gulfstream. Our consultant, CAP Government Services, would add additional staff to handle the additional workload from Gulfstream, from my understanding. The July 19th meeting, a second meeting, also had the discussion at the end of the meeting, again in the town manager report. He indicated at that time that they had been meeting with the attorney and finance people and with Gulfstream and had created final drafts of the agreement, of an interlocal agreement, which was sent to the commissioners. My understanding is that the upside of this deal would be that we would have our consultant, CAP Government Services staff full-time, i.e. we'd have a full-time electrical guy, a full-time plumbing guy for inspection. And this would be invaluable to both municipalities for building department services. They would be housed in the Highland Beach offices. While doing my research for today, I came across an interesting article dated June 29th on this situation in the Coastal Star newspaper with quotes from these officials. For example, Jeff Remus said he was kind of excited about getting the extra work. I see this as an opportunity for us to actually improve our services because we'll be bringing on some people with more hours to have the capability to work in-house with us here and actually help our plan review process. End of quote. While what I don't understand is these additional people in their hours will need to be working on the Gulfstream projects. The article also mentioned the Delray Beach city manager, Terrence Moore, who said that his city had the previous contract with Gulfstream and was about to add new costs for the permitting review, including travel time for building inspectors. If you haven't been to Gulfstream lately, it's north of the George Bush Bridge on A1A, the other side of Delray. So there's travel time involved. So they were going to add costs for travel time, plus staff time to teach Gulfstream how to use its digital permitting system. Gulfstream residents were previously paying the same permit fees as Delray residents. Delray was going to charge them a much higher fee than they charged their residents. I also want to share with you Nazario, Gulfstream's assistant attorney, who said, it seems that the Delray constituents are very upset with the amount of time it's taking to process their permits. So why are they processing our Gulfstream permits? The agreement says, the agreement that was proposed to be presented today, which now will be presented on Thursday, says our residents will receive no priority, I repeat, no priority in permitting and inspections, and would pay exactly the same price as the people in Gulfstream. Some recent history, Gulfstream actually went out to bid and had 3 bids to provide these services to Gulfstream directly. As a matter of fact, they're in the finals with our consultant, CAP Government Services, to provide these services to them when our town manager offered for Highland Beach to provide these services. I absolutely cannot understand why we are offering services on Highland Beach to support Gulfstream. If they had no choices, okay, a fellow municipality, we help them out. But they had a consultant they were negotiating with. I'm now wondering if our new fire department will also be offered to Gulfstream, as they're currently getting their services from Delray, which is where they're getting the department, where they were getting their building department services. The only advantage that we're being told is that we'll be able to have the staff, the consultant staff full-time. It's apparent to me as a consultant with over 50 years of consulting, which included municipal clients, that all we're doing is providing marketing services for this consultant company, a private company. There is no benefit, no added benefit to the residents of Highland Beach. Actually, the reverse is really true. If you've been up in Gulfstream, you got to realize we're about 80% of the permits are condominiums. We're essentially a condominium town. Gulfstream, you go through there, has one condominium, and it's all very large homes compared to our homes. So actually, when you think about it, if you're replacing a water heater in a condominium, it's a lot different from going into these big homes and replacing water heaters or air conditioning. So providing the same cost is one thing. Also, the fact that in terms of the workload, by the time it's done with all of their houses, they, by the way, have more permits per capita than we do. What will happen is that they will be about 60 to 65% of the workload of the building department, and our people will only be about 35 to 40%. The part most distressing to me of all of this is this was never on any agenda till today, August 2nd, and now that's been postponed to August 4th. It was discussed at the end of the manager's reports on June 21st and again July 19th. At the July 19th meeting, the town manager reported he sent drafts of the interlocal agreement to the commissioners for review. Now, August 2nd, it's finally on the agenda, or was on the agenda, an agreement putting forth for the commissioners to approve what can be a significant impact to our town. Where has been the transparency? I had hoped after this last election, I thought things were going to change around in terms of trying to work with the townspeople. I'm not seeing it. This is the exact reverse, and it's really a very sad thing for me to run across this on a Sunday afternoon when I look at the agenda. Commissioners turn this down. End this now. There is no reason why we should be going with Gulfstream. Thank you.
Next public comments. Sure.
Yeah.
Please state your first and last name.
Hi, I'm Jane Perlow. I reside for the last 20 years at Toscana West, 3720 South Ocean Boulevard. I am the vice chair of the Code Enforcement Board for the town, and I am also the vice or treasurer for the Committee to Save Highland Beach. So I've been pretty active for the community, and I was kind of distressed when I received a text from Jack regarding this meeting. I do want to state, why is it that every summer this commission has to make an important meeting without the majority of residents being present? How dare you commit to an undertaking of this amount and of giving permits and sharing our building department at the same rate that we pay for? Wasn't it bad enough that we got royally screwed by Delray for 10 years for the fire department? And now you want us to give our bodies over to something else and not get a premium fee for it? That's what we should be doing. It's bad enough we don't have in the our fees should be higher for permits and also for the penalties that we supposed to give at code enforcement. They have not been raised. What benefit is it to us to do this? At least Delray was smart enough to milk us for the fire department, so they benefited from us, okay? If the mayor was a businessman and a very successful one, how could he agree to this arrangement? Because this would give Gulfstream the same rate that we pay as residents of Highland Beach. Maybe some of you are not aware of it, but most condos in the area will be getting 20% increases for their maintenance because of our inflationary times. And that's an added expense for residents. And if this thing goes through, maybe you'll have to raise our taxes also, since this does not make sense to me at all. I'm surprised that we even considered to do something like this. And I don't even understand. I understand the reason we have cap services so that we didn't have to have unionized employees on our payroll. We have in our condo, we use First Service Residential, and so they have most of the problems on their back. But this is something, who needs this grief? Yes, they only have one condo, but we don't need to have a condo collapse like it did in Miami and have that liability on our back too. Plus, these big houses take time to go through and get permits. All I can say is this is a totally irrational and outrageous idea on behalf of if it was the commission or whoever suggested this, really should be criticized, because this is a ridiculous thing to give us. Thank you.
Okay, the next, are there any more? Okay, please state your name and your address.
My name is David Newman. We've lived in Highland Beach for about 5 years. We live in the townhouses of Highland Beach. Okay,
Or turn it up, put it up, right?
how's that? Okay, better, sorry. Well, I concur with the last two comments, but actually what I'm here to speak about is what the volunteer has volunteered for, which is the situation involving the environmental problem we're having on the beaches. And I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I'm really dismayed at the condition of our beaches. I know we've had seaweed on the beach on and off for the last, since we've been here, but this summer seems to be worse. I've read articles about what the condition of the oceans are, but there are ways to address this and to ameliorate this. And I think it's something that we're all affected by, especially someone like me who walks on the beach, cleans the beach several days a week, by just people that like to go to the beach and swim in the ocean. Right now, it's not comfortable for me to swim in the ocean because there's so much seaweed, crawling all over the place. And the interesting environmental aspect of this is that the seaweed is very valuable. It's a natural resource that we could benefit from. It can be used as fertilizer. It may be used for a number of things. We can just pick it up and put it in our plants, or we don't have to do another thing. So we have fertilizer just sitting on the beach, but the residents are not going to be able to pick up enough seaweed to unless they're going to have redwood trees in their balconies. So there are solutions. I know it's not a simple solution, but there are solutions, and I think we need to address the solutions as quickly as we can. It's very upsetting to have the beach is covered with seaweed and the waters filled with seaweed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional public comments? Okay. All right, thank you for coming to the meeting and providing your comments. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, number 7, announcements. Board vacancies, Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We have 1 vacancy for a 3-year term. Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board, that vacancy has been filled. There are several meetings and events coming up. So Thursday at noon, August 4th, 2022, we have a Town Commission special meeting. August 9th, 2022 at 1 p.m., we have the Code Enforcement Board, a regular meeting. August 10th, 2022 at 12:30, we have a meeting of the Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board, regular meeting. August 11th, 2022 at 9:30 in the morning, Planning Board, regular meeting. August 16th, 2022 at 1:30, we have a Town Commission meeting. And next regarding board action reports, we have none. So moving on to item 8 of the agenda, ordinances. Item 8A, proposed ordinance, an ordinance of the town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending the administrative amendments to the 7th, 2020 edition of the Florida Building Code to update the requirements for reinspection and recertification of existing threshold buildings and other buildings owned by a condominium or cooperative association to conform with the state law, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and codification, and providing for an effective date. So I refer this item to Building Official Remus.
Good afternoon. On May 26, 2022, Senate Bill 4D, the building safety, was signed by Governor DeSantis into law. This, I'm going to call it quote, milestone inspection portion of the law directly impacts our existing recertification ordinance, and the ordinance presented today makes the necessary changes to comply with Senate Bill 4D. And the changes, not today, no. And the changes have a minimal impact and do not compromise the integrity of our existing ordinance. There is no fiscal impact to this because the state statute is only adding 3 buildings, as I previously shown in the PowerPoint presentation. And we've been back and forth a few times with the attorney, several times going back and forth. Marshall's reviewed it, I've reviewed it, it's again back to Len Rubin and back again. And now we believe we have something that is compliant with state law with, again, minimal impact to our existing. So my recommendation is approval of the ordinance, which we're eventually gonna have to do anyway to be compliant.
Okay. Is there any commission discussion?
Yes.
John, you
I
wanna
have
start?
a Few questions. And more for clarification. And since we have, 8 to 10 people in the audience, which is frankly one of the most we've ever had in the last couple of years, it seems. So this is good, but it's also being recorded. So this is for the advantage of those who are watching or will watch. Just reminding everyone that we're on TV 99. Our meetings are recorded. We have minutes that are available. You can go online and get that information, as well as, of course, you're right, we need to give advance notice on the agenda and so forth. Okay. As far as the certification goes, and you did an excellent job at the last meeting going through the whole program, what's been involved. But I need to clarify a couple of things. One is under phase 1, it's a visual inspection. Now, if it's a visual inspection, the question to me is, it's not intrusive. So we're relying on the special inspector to decide whether there is a need for intrusion, correct?
That is correct.
So if there's no intrusion and we have visual, then we're good to go. There's no need for a phase 2.
That is correct. And they have to put the verbiage down that the state requires, just like the same thing can happen with what we have right now. You can have someone come in, rubber stamp something, say everything looks great, but they're taking on that liability and they're putting in that minimum verbiage that's required by both the state and what we require.
Right. And the liability has been a
It goes
concern.
right back to the engineering firm.
When it also an electrical engineering inspection has to be done. That does not include landscape lighting. Is that correct?
No,
So if there's a light pole in the parking lot for a condominium and it electrocutes somebody, that's their problem. It's not involved in anything that we're doing with certification, building inspections, correct?
well, yes and no. Number one, landscape lighting, a pole in a parking lot would not be considered landscape lighting. That's a regular branch circuit. So they're supposed to be inspecting all branch circuits, all 120, 208 volt, 480 voltage. All of that is supposed to be inspected. When you talked about landscape lighting, we're talking about the
Ground.
little low voltage lighting that's outside, and most everything outside other than lighting, anything you plug into is supposed to be on ground fault protected anyway.
And the inspection is done for the light poles, as an example. The only reason I mention this is because I know of a situation where they put in a new pole and there's a hole in the middle of the pole so that they can reach in and connect the wires and all that sort of thing. And then they're supposed to put a plate on it, right? Well, in this case, they forgot to put the plate on and it was exposed, and, you know, kid went over, fortunately didn't touch it, but you could see the possibility there. So the question is, who's responsible?
That's the electrical engineer that's going to sign off on the electrical portion of that.
So he will go out to the poles.
Well, I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to provide the paperwork to us because we're looking at this administratively. They're providing paperwork saying that they've looked at the electrical equipment, the electrical branch circuits, and that everything is safe. That's up to them. The extent of their inspections, again, we were very careful on this. We don't want to tell people how to do their job, but we're expecting that a professional is going to do their job and follow through.
So you've got the list. And again, this is for everybody. We do have a list of all the buildings. And we added 3 buildings to the list.
That is correct.
That need to be certified at some point in time. And on this list, it includes immediately the priority for all those that were built before July of 97.
Yes.
So they're due for a phase 1 as soon as it can be scheduled.
Absolutely.
And after the inspection is done, first we give notice and then they have 90 days. We have 90 days to go out there and actually do the inspection, correct?
No,
Okay, what's
No.
the deal?
So-
It's 90 days to fix things.
no. The word 90 days doesn't exist in any component of this ordinance or the pre-existing. So under our, as of today, until you vote on this and pass it, when we give someone notification, they have 365 days to provide us with their comprehensive inspection report. Under the state statute now, they've broken it down into phase 1 and phase 2. After we notify them, now they only have 180 days to provide that report. The timeline, just coincidentally, that the state laid out for compliance by December 31st, 2024, happens to line directly up with what we already had in place, because we decided to kind of roll this out over about a 2-year period. And that's the same amount of time that we now have. Well, the state actually gave people less time, but we got a head start and did a whole bunch of notifications. So they have 180 days to provide the phase 1 inspection. And that phase 1 inspection could say, hey, they're good, they don't need a phase 2, and have that verbiage, or they could say, nope, we need to go to a phase 2 because we found some areas.
And if the areas are not resolved, we end up in a problem, then it would go to the code enforcement board.
If they don't comply with the reporting, then it could end up as a code case, or it can escalate to where we deem the building to be unsafe for human habitation and have it evacuated.
Since we have some representatives from the code enforcement board, I just thought I'd have that mentioned to the process. So I don't see any issues beyond that. I just, as questions, I didn't really have any issues. Just wanted to clarify for some that I know that are watching. Thank you.
Evelyn?
Okay, we would have to do this regardless because we have to comply with state code, and we do that every year anyway. We make the adjustments to comply with anything new. So that's, I don't have a problem with any of this. Yeah, their timelines are a little bit different, and they do break it down into 2 phases. I did have a question on, what is this? Going back. 2C, which is on page 12.
Sure.
Okay. It says, inspections of threshold buildings shall be performed by a certified special inspector of threshold buildings. And then it says inspections of association buildings, and I don't understand what the difference is.
Okay.
Maybe. So, I mean, you have Shell and you have May, and they both seem to deal with inspections and the qualifications of the inspector. Is it that this may be phase 1 and phase 2?
No,
That-
not at all. Okay, so a threshold building requires a special inspector because it's a high-rise building. It's greater than 4-story. Okay, it's so significantly, and they have more restrictive requirements for
Right,
structural inspectors.
That I get.
These, which is all that we're covering, is threshold inspectors until the state came along and said, no, if you have a 3-story, that's 4 units, we have to add that in.
Okay,
It's those buildings that are not threshold that can have any architect or engineer sign off on them.
okay.
That's the difference in is that clarified?
That clarifies it, but maybe we should make that a,
Well, it brings up the issue of the adjoining garage that's attached to the building. And you're saying that building is part, the garage is still part of the inspection.
it doesn't, why? No, it doesn't bring up the garage. This is,
If the garage is connected to the building
okay,
as an integral part of the building, then wouldn't that be part of the inspection?
Then it's part of that building. If it's
Yeah.
attached,
Yeah, but
it's part of
that's-
it.
But that's always been true.
Yeah, well.
It doesn't matter
It's an
that,
adjoining structure.
yeah, but it doesn't matter that it's a garage as opposed to an expansion of the tower. It's included regardless. And even if it's not attached, it can be included depending on the size of it.
Right, if it's over 3.
Yeah. But in any event, I would have your inspector look at it regardless. Because garages get a lot of wear and tear and people don't pay as much attention. Okay, I think that's it. That was the only question that I had and you explained it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Jeff, thank you. Couple things on page. Back to page 13 of the 6 of the report, 13 of the agenda. Why was it removed that all elements of the required report, structural and electrical, should be submitted simultaneously and electrically signed shall meet applicable statutory requirements? I don't understand that, why they were removed. Roman numeral 3 and Roman numeral 4 at the top of the page.
Well, we can have it.
I just
Yeah,
wondered.
okay, yeah, we can have it, but that's already under state statute and the rules and regulations of DBPNR. So I believe we were being redundant. And I also believe that that's picked up in another section as far as all elements of the required report, both structural and element, shall be submitted simultaneously. There's sometimes when they cannot do this. They're going to have a deadline regardless, but there's times when they can't because unfortunately the way that the state statute was written, they require a phase 2 inspection, but phase 2 inspection is typically done during the restoration process. So we may be getting those in phases, and that's why we had to alter things around a little bit. So they might hand in the phase 2 report for the east side of the building because they're working in lifts. They might be going from balcony 101 all the way to balcony 1201. So we're going to get, while that's happening, and they're coming in on a regular basis with several literally phase inspections.
Right.
The inspection for the electrical can typically be knocked out all at once. So we don't really need them simultaneously, but they both still have the same deadline.
Okay, I understand. I know it's very complex, more
Yeah.
than we sitting up here probably realize. The other concern is statewide, there aren't enough engineers at the level of inspection that the state is going to need. And so I understand from reading about it that they will hire subs to work and report to them. Do you see any problem with that for our town?
Well, they're not going to have subs. What the engineer of record is going to have is called a duly authorized representative. And this is someone that is also under that same statute, is certified at a particular level, has to have so much experience in order to even be used. So, and this is the reality of it. The majority of the time, the actual engineer who's sitting in his office you're not going to find him up on one of the lifts, cracking away and exposing and looking at things. You're going to have one of his duly authorized representatives and they are regulated. But ultimately, it's that special inspector that is taking responsibility for those inspections. And the way that they typically work is they're always taking in photographs, doing measurements, taking pictures with the, dial indicators and so on and so forth, so that if any of the repairs are outside the scope of the original drawings, those can be addressed specifically by the engineer back at the office.
Got it. And I'm guessing they can live stream if necessary from the site to have
All sorts of ways now to do it.
with what we have now. So are you confident that that system will be workable for us and everyone?
It already has been.
Okay, great.
And I think it'll continue to be. We're on the ocean for, with most of the buildings that we have as threshold, and I'm not going to see where we're going to be changing, I'm not seeing that changing anytime soon. And the good news is that the state didn't mandate the threshold inspector for the phase one. So that'll free up more to come to Highland Beach, and so we can do things the right way.
That will help. And then lastly, I'm guessing, and from what I've heard, this will probably be tweaked again by the legislature or early next year, in which case then we would come back again and reevaluate ours in that term. So this is still a work in progress, do you think?
It's always going to be a work in progress. And one of the options that we looked at was just repealing what we have and just going with what the state, but with my conversations with the people who put this together at the state level, their expectation, they understand that things are different everywhere. They really want us to have our own ordinance lining up with this. And they are currently working on a statewide consistent paperwork, like inspection forms that they're going to eventually come out with.
Great. And I will add that Mr. Remus is well known in the area for having done such great work on this and being the BCO of the county. So I want to thank him again for that, because without him, we may not be such a great shape on this. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
That's it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'm good with the code. I don't have any issues there. I guess my question is about a communication plan, and education for all the condos. Do you think that they're going to be confused? I'm a little confused by this whole phase one, phase two thing. Do you think they're going to be confused? And are there any plans to communicate and roll this out for them?
Well, it's really not changing much for us, except for the letter that I send out is going to have to change from 365 to 180. They have to comply at this point, regardless of whether or not we notify them. But once we do notify them, they have 185 days. Our current letter that goes out that explains, and it has a separate sheet that kind of lays everything out for them. All of that's going to be changed now pending this approval. So now I have something solid to work from. And then when I send these letters out, I'm going to change it to 365 and explain and change, the phases on it. So when they get the letter, they understand. So we send a letter out, first class mail, and we hand deliver it. We actually do both. And in this case, after speaking with Len Rubin, we're going to go ahead and do certified mail. So we're going to do certified mail, and then we hand deliver and we document that we hand deliver, because I was able to use our existing inspection software to create this and run this program so that we have everything documented from the minute we send the letter and hand deliver it to the last inspection that comes in to printing out the certificate of completion.
And then if they have questions, they can just call.
They can
the
always call.
building department for
Always.
a layman's explanation. Okay,
Vice Mayor,
yes.
I've gotten the impression from the few property managers I've spoken to is that they understand it somewhat, but they maybe get a little queasy about the deadlines and that sort of thing. But once the letter goes out, they get it in writing. They're also going to be working with a inspector or architect. They know it really well.
Okay.
It'll be the team.
Okay,
And especially since there's already a practice of cooperation with the building
Right.
department.
yes. Okay, great. Okay, so public comments are now open. Or do we have any public comments on this topic? No. Okay, is there a motion to approve the proposed ordinance on first reading?
Yes, I move that we accept the proposed ordinance incorporating the state's recertification program into ours
On a first read.
on a first, well, but it is a first read, so.
What?
But you don't have to say that it's a first read because by the second read, you'll have a number.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, say no. Okay, moving on to item 9 of the agenda, the consent agenda. Item A, approve and authorize the Public Works Director to rehabilitate lift station number 2, utilizing the existing agreement with Hinterland Group Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $66,700. So this is a consent agenda item. So I just asked for if there are any public comments on this item. Okay, since there are no public comments, we can close that portion. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no.
I just have a comment. I'm amazed that it worked this well for 42 years without needing to be redone. I mean, I found that like, wow.
And also a additional comment. Since I don't know anything about lift stations, I am amazed at how much is available on the internet. You can go online and get a whole tutorial on what lift stations do, how they're made, what they look like, how they operate, the whole deal. And the life cycle is amazing. Whether they're dry or wet wells, whether they're submerged pumps or not, it's amazing. So we're getting good life out of these. It sounds like we got a good operation. I do have one question though. Maybe you can answer this, Marshall.
Sure.
In the tutorials that I've been watching on lift stations, I don't know why I got fascinated once I understood we have 8 lift stations, or is it 6?
6.
6. That some of them have literally elevators that will go down 20 feet. I assume we don't have elevators, but the whole point is to raise the level up higher so that gravity can take the flow after the lift station.
The system has the adequate gravity to move it and or low pressure to get it totally out of the system when we discharge. The raising of it is to limit water infiltration during rain
Floods.
events and foreseeing rising sea levels, those king tides that get up in everyone's backyards, they're starting to creep towards some of our lift stations. So the idea is to get it outside of that influence. So we're only sending and passing and treating sewage, not clean water, which then we have to pay on a volume basis. So, and we don't want it to backflow out and get over the system to be overtaxed. Then you have like, if you're looking in background, like combined sewer overflows, that's basically what the issue is that if we don't raise them, we'll get all this clean and ocean water and then the sewage will come up and out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, and I thought these pumps were going to be really enormous. I mean, they're about, yay big. I mean, it's not, but usually you have 2 of them at a lift station. Is that right?
Yep.
One is a backup. And so anyways, if you want to know about lift stations, I can help you.
And so can our Public Works gentleman here.
Yeah, if you have a very specific question, I would go to Pat.
Okay, moving on to item number 10, unfinished business, which is the fire rescue implementation update. And I turn it over to Marshall.
All right, I know I gave the commission an update. We are in the throes of approval. And we are tied up in the larger political structure of the county. And that's really what's at play with us currently. We submitted for our COPCN, Certificate of Public Need and Necessity, Convenience and Necessity to operate for ALS and BLS. That is like the key for us to operate our fire. Ems Council staff for the county has reviewed it. We satisfied all the conditions of the ordinance of the county ordinance that allows us to have this license. We checked all the boxes, submitted all the forms, answered any questions. We went as a team. I made a presentation. It was well received by most. We get there, staff made their presentation, motion to approve. That motion was seconded. And then a couple of committee members or council members moved to postpone by Robert Rules of Orders. They were correct. So they basically knew what they were doing to get the delay they wanted from us. So basically, there were a few items that the Palm Beach County Fire Union Association wanted. One is to our further commitment to a 3-man rescue, which is kind of that minimum staffing stuff. We've heard a lot about that talk with us over the years. The union wants that commitment. We said it is in the application, so we already knew that was coming, but all of the members didn't get the CPN application. It's this huge book of all the stuff we had to submit. So they wanted us to express letter of intent that we would do that. We said, that's not a problem. They wanted to make sure it was a union shop. We said, I don't know a fire department that isn't a union shop. I don't know why you're holding us up for that. It's just what happens. But we said, sure, we recognize that the commission's prepared. And then to explore or begin conversations with the city of Delray over mutual aid. We're working on that. We have no problems working with them on a mutual aid basis, so long as it's mutual and some of the inequities that we initially found that led us to this point are addressed, and we'll see where that goes. We are also, myself, Chief Joseph and Tom McCarthy have been working the phones, calling everybody from county commissioners to EMS council members. Luckily, our consultants have a broad range of experience in the county and have a lot of contacts. So they've been calling their friends on the committee to see what exactly their concern is. As I've informed you, I believe we will succeed. The journey is never easy. We appreciate those things which we work hardest to achieve. So we're going to really appreciate when we get this. So we've made those commitments. We're talking with Delray. That's all. That's it. It's a framework discussion. Can there be mutual aid? We've taken the high road through this. At times, it doesn't look like the high road is being pursued by all parties involved. I hope we're all getting there. I think, time is dissolving any sore feelings. That was a pretty strong conversation topic. That appeared to rear its face a little bit, some of the frustration, but we're working on it. And I believe we will come out of this and start moving towards putting the final touches and get the department in. We'll be making necessary plans if it goes awry to what our backup plans will be to obtain this. The interesting thing that I communicated to the EMS Council, amongst other things, it was a very unique meeting for me. They didn't really manage the meeting all that well. I think it got away from them a bit, and that'll be corrected moving forward. I said, and the same things I tell to the county commissioners when I talk to all of them is I had 92% approval from this community. You don't get 92% approval for much, in school, if I got a 92% approval rating, I was pretty happy. Now I got 92%. And not only was it 92%, the community gave us the dollars to do it. So not only do I have the full support of the community and the dollars, we got both together carried forward. And I said, secondly, because I think everybody, has started asking us, what are your plan B? I said, there is not a plan B. And the reason why I say that is we changed the charter. When we changed the charter that said it takes a voter referendum to go back to a similar situation that we came from, it requires at least 50% plus of our residents to approve it. I communicated to them. I know that this changes it. Couple of folks that understood what a charter was, you'd be surprised. Most of this committee are, doctors, paramedics, fire chiefs. They don't really pay much attention to the constitution of, these little small towns. I said, with that change, with 92% saying go for it, I I spoke a little bit on your behalf and said, this commission's not putting a ballot question on anytime soon that relates to going back to Delray. That just isn't happening. So in order for us to go back to a contractual relationship, that's got to be a voter driven referendum. Well, and you need 10% sign off. Well, I got 92% said, go do this. They're short, but it would not be coming from us and the process would take a long time. So I tried to get them to understand the gravity of the situation that we are doing this. I think some folks were a little surprised or they hadn't been paying attention or still, I think, are surprised that we could do this, that we made it this far, right? So that's kudos to everybody in this community, to the commission. We made it. We're here and we've checked every box. The county staff has said we've satisfied every condition. So we're working through what now is the political bodies and political agendas of many throughout this county, for which we are a small spot on this larger county makeup. So we're doing everything we can to leverage relationships, talk to folks, just be honest and let them know what's going on. And I think we're going to get there, but it's a little bit of a bouncy trip. And like I was telling the vice mayor earlier today, I've been talking on the phone more than a teenage girl. So I'm constantly talking to people everywhere, every day, phone calls, night, morning, weekends, whatever it takes. I'm talking to these folks to keep us in play. So we've met some of that resistance that we anticipated. We're pushing through that resistance professionally. I thought we did a very good job. I was proud of Glenn, especially. I have not seen him take an aggressive tone in 4 years, but boy, he did at that meeting. So we were really assertive. The mayor was great. Chief Joseph was amazing. We announced him at that meeting as our fire chief, and McCarthy was great. And we stayed on him. We didn't let him overtalk and dominate the meeting, but we, let everyone know that, we're doing this and it's happening. So let's move forward. So what we're going to do is we have a follow-up. We're going back to the EMS Council on their emergency meeting on August 11th. I believe we will do well. The hospitals, the doctors, Dr. Cohen is great. So we're gaining a lot of support outside of, maybe there's some reluctance from the fire union and of course Delray, but Delray doesn't have a seat on the committee. They just had a lot to say.
As they always do.
Yeah. So, and I'm hoping that in time we all can learn to live in the same pond together. So we go to the 11th. Once we get that approval, then we go on September 13th to the county commission, and the county commission will then receive that recommendation from the EMS Council. Both decision points, the EMS Council and the County Board of Commissioners, if they are to do anything outside of approval, they have to render a finding of fact based on the ordinance. Now, if they decide not to and go off on what things aren't in there, fire service is not to be discussed. We're not asking for approval to be a fire service. We get that from the state. And the state's already said we got it. This is for EMS only. So, they're trying to throw fire stuff at us. Mutual aid isn't in the ordinance. You can't say you can't do EMS because of mutual aid. It's not in the ordinance. So they're going to have to find that fact. Doesn't mean that they won't do something crazy or something that's very frustrating, but nonetheless, we're moving forward with that. So it's been an eye-opening experience. We're out there, we're succeeding, we're pushing, and your message is being received that Highland Beach will have its own fire rescue department. That is going to happen come hell or high water. So other things that are going on, fire station, how is that going? So we got some pricing and got the tentative layout and cost with the Kaufman Lynn on the 2-story in the rear. Those costs are a little bit higher than we anticipated. We're pushing back on that, but we're also looking at a 1-floor station in the same location behind the building. Chief Joseph, our response times do improve the 1-story versus if you're in a gym on the 2nd floor and you got to go down the stairs, get in the rig and get out onto the call. It may not sound like a lot if it's a minute and a half, but that means the world in a cardiac situation. So we want to make sure again, what we promised the residents was that turnaround response time to be on site, which we had seen was failing when the call was coming from Delray. So we're looking at the 1 station. The 1 station we're hoping will be a lower in cost, but then it does pose an issue, we need administrative space. So we're looking at where we're going to come up with a couple options for you all that if we like the one story, where do we put fire administration? And also to look at, the conversion of the old station into that community space. Maybe that could be the administrative space. Maybe that's a new post office, those type of things. So we're looking at all those pieces and hopefully to get that to you. I'd like to get to you before the end of the month because it's time to go. We're anticipating construction starting in January. So we want to get that going to meet those timelines. Again, with the EMS rigs in, once the county commission approves our COCPN, then we'll start looking at the other backup ladder truck that we'll need and start taking those things. And my voice will slowly become silent for Chief Joseph when we start getting the technical application and delivery of those services, protocols, response times, recruitment of staff. He'll start coming in and taking that greater role because it does require that expertise in the field. So we're making the transition, everything in our plan that we said we would do, we're doing. Some folks are reluctant to do that for us, but I kind of understand it because it hasn't been done in 30 years and nobody in the county was around the last time a fire department was established. So I think they struggle too, trying to get through this and some of the concerns that, what we do will be replicated. I tell folks that, if you provide good service, you should never worry about somebody else, losing your business. But I said, what we are able to do can't simply be replicated in other towns around the county. The reason why is we're, 6/10 of dry land. We have less than 2 calls a day. I have 92% approval. I've got the allocation of the dollars necessary. We're a small service area and our demands for service are very specific to our resident base and the structures of which they live, being condos predominantly with 90% of the population. So you can't take that and say, oh, Wellington overnight is going to put in a six station fire department by, 15 apparatus. That's a big undertaking. We were talking that now you're talking $150 million to make something happen. That's not turnkey. Here's a little bit turnkey because we know what the experience is and the dollars are a little bit lesser. So, we're moving through it's going to be exciting over the next 6 weeks is kind of our big push. And we'll know if we need to take other courses of action. You wanted to say something on that? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I've got to say, our team really did a great job. Marshall really did an amazing presentation. And what was apparent as you were doing the presentation is the aha moments for different people, because we've lived this for so long. All right. We've talked about response times and 60% of the calls going out of our community. But there are people that were like, deer in the headlight. What are we talking about? And he had some great slides and had some questions about some of those slides. And as the process evolved, you could see light bulbs going off. But it was our first time before this group of 20 people who, as Marshall said, haven't done something like this in 30 years. A chairman, Bob Bean, he worked with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue when I was their lawyer a long time ago. And he and I were talking before the meeting and he says, I can't remember the last time. So, and Bob's been around 40 years. So it was a new process for them. We, of course, got some opposition from Delray. They threw some, good questions out there that caused the fire union folks to say, oh, wait a minute, are you going to be able to provide backup for safety of our firefighters? And I'm not going to say that wasn't their true concern, but as you said, it's politics. I mean, there was a lot of that going on in the room. And just to kind of visualize this setting, imagine you're in a stadium seating environment, because that's what it's like. This is multi-levels of dais is like this, but normally holds 100 people in an emergency, and you're in layers. And so the council members are sitting all around, not one spot where you see everybody. And we're behind them doing a presentation essentially to their back, except when Marshall gets up to do the presentation at the big screen. And the mayor also was fabulous. I mean, at one point, he and the chief from Delray had a little back and forth where it was important for them to see the commitment. So, when they talked about, oh, we don't have mutual aid, technically, that's not important. Throw the technical out the window. They're not talking technical in this room. These are all first responders, hospitals, doctors, EMS. They're curious. They want to know. So when he, said, the mayor stood up and said, we will agree to mutual aid. We will agree to that. And that was an important, kind of point. So the motion to table it, obviously not the result we wanted, but to me, it was the opportunity to educate all these people who didn't really know that much about us. And we did a great job educating them. You know, Chief Joseph did a really good job. So overall, we're not going to know until August 11th how their vote is, but I'm much more confident, you know, as time has gone by and Marshall's working those phones like that teenager all the time. So I think we're in a good spot, but I just wanted to set that setting for you because it's a very different setting. It's not the normal meeting that you go into with people who meet regularly, but about very narrow EMS issues. They're not looking at all 92% approval rating for the town of Highland Beach is a lot for us. For some person who lives in Belglade or Loxahatchee, it doesn't mean a lot to them. And so we were making our points and they're starting to realize this community really wants to do this for our health and safety and we're going to have better services. So great job.
So yeah, so we're moving along. Again, next Thursday is that revisit to the EMS Council, which I'm hopeful and believe that we should secure it. And again, the county has made every commitment that there's nothing we didn't give them. So what is it that holds them back? They'll have to do a finding of fact if they don't approve it. So I'm looking for that recommendation of approval. Again, I'm meeting with the county commissioners, trying to explain, as Glenn said, basically tell folks our story. Because they're only going to hear it from one side or one interest group. So just kind of tell our story to them, how we got here, I think helped. Like, you know, we just didn't, you know, dream this up overnight. This was over time. Issues weren't addressed. We tried, that didn't. So we took, based on very discrete and thought out steps, we followed this process and here we are. So hopefully I can say on August 16th that we're going to the county on the 13th of September.
Okay, so is there any commission discussion about the update?
The only question I have is on the 11th, I assume you won't attend the Florida League of Cities meeting, but join later.
Yeah, the mayor and I will depart from the Florida League of Cities. We will go to the EMS Council to make our presentation, answer questions. We're really the only business, so it should be focused and we'll be back by late morning. So we can all convab, or I can, under the sunshine law, check each of you, like line up and I'll talk to you and then I'll go to the next person and talk to them. You know? So, we'll be able to communicate this out pretty quickly. And maybe at the Florida League of Cities, while we're there, I would, tell our story. You can all be the storytellers as well when you run into folks from other cities, other communities, county commissioners, and just trying to tell them the story so they can start, we're coming, used to be, you say you're from Highland Beach and everyone look at you like, Highland Beach. I don't know where that is. People know where Highland Beach is now. We're starting to find our place within this larger county. So this is our opportunity to tell our story.
Very good.
Evelyn, anything? Okay.
Thank you. It baffles my mind that there are federal guidelines for this in terms of mutual aid. It is a requirement of FEMA at the federal level. So that needs to be reminded of people. Secondly, what time is that meeting on the 11th? I was just curious.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Okay. And thirdly, I thank our staff and our consultants for really pushing the pedal to the metal here. We're going to get this done, period.
Yeah, I would just say that the county has been very receptive to us. Our county agency, Palm Beach County itself, from the administrator's office to the staff, public safety staff, they've been very accommodating. And Palm Beach County has, will be providing us mutual aid. So it's not like we're not getting mutual aid. It's just that Delray has a natural connection to us. And I think we could help them a little bit. We know what the call volumes and numbers are, and that's what they were saying. And of course, we're going to need help. I guess, should we get a fire, we're going to need some people to come in and help us. So.
I guess one question I have, like I watched the county meetings and even here when you have the public come to the meeting, I just wonder, like, and I mentioned this to you earlier, and if there's maybe discussion about it, would it help if we had members of the committee of the Highland Beach to go on the 11th or maybe just to the county meeting in September? I I noticed they, they have time for public comment. And I just wonder, would that help if they saw actually residents come and
I
in
think-
support of this?
I would say it depends. I think at the county board of commission level will be the more important because the EMS council is only as an advisory. They're making an advisory opinion. Please, like we recommend approval. The county's got to accept it and the county would be the more appropriate one. I would just caution, we just got to be careful how we dance through this. Not to create alarm, but I'll let you know when it's time to catch your hair on fire and, start screaming. I'll let you know when that day and time comes because it may need to happen. But I think right now we're working the right channels. We are, as directed by our residents, the commission, we're taking a very professional, direct, accommodating position. And let's see if, let them, respond to that. But it could be necessary at some point. Yes.
Yeah, if you think that would help at all, I mean, I think we could maybe garner some support.
I would agree with Marshall, not the EMS council, but the county commission. They respond. I mean, I've
They
been there plenty
do.
of times. There's 100 people wearing t-shirts that say
Yep.
vote whatever,
Yep.
and folks from the Glades have been bussed in and, they do respond like we all respond to
Right.
other citizens. So I think Marshall's right. That's not this meeting coming up.
Okay,
And again, the setting of that environment isn't going to play
okay,
well to that. Again, stadium seating, we're like in the 4th level, and the audience would be in the 5th level behind that. And the people but at the county commission level, I think it does make sense to bring folks. And when you see them at the League of Cities, thank them for their support, the commissioners, and encourage them to support, because look, at the end of the day, those 7 people are going to make the ultimate decision. And so if you have any personal connections with them, if you see them, talk to them, thank them for their support, encourage them to support. Because again, we don't know how all 7 feel about it. But we want to make sure that we certainly get the majority.
I've talked to 3 county commissioners. They've all, 2 have been quite supportive. One is lukewarm, but again, their district is affected, that meaning Delray Beach, but seemed very supportive and understanding. So I'm hoping that continues through the group as I meet them, and I'll meet them all before they vote. So they've all committed to meet with me personally. So we will, again, have that opportunity to tell the story.
okay, great. Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item? Okay, public comments are now closed. Okay, moving on to new business, item 11. And the only item under new business is the approval of the July 19th, 2022 commission meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes for July 19th?
No corrections I could find. Great job.
Okay,
I'm good.
nobody
I'm
else?
good.
Okay, me either. Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 19th, 2022 meeting?
I move we approve the minutes of the July 19th, 2022 commission meeting.
Okay, great.
Second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. No, okay, no no's. Okay, let's move to item 12 on the agenda, Town Commission comments. Start with Commissioner Shoemaker.
So I don't have that many comments, although I'm really pleased that we have a new addition to the Environmental Resources Board. She speaks 5 languages, by the way. Well, I figure she'll learn how to speak turtle language too. But living on the beach now, having just moved earlier this year, I see I should say sargassum out there. It stretches, I mean, from horizon to horizon. It's unbelievable. And the amount that's coming in is amazing. And I've had to walk over it. It's like a foot to 2 feet deep. And in fact, I think is somewhat of a barrier for turtles trying to get on the beach,
It is.
But in any event, I really do appreciate the concern. I look at the beach every day myself. I'm a hiker, I'm a kayaker, I'm very active on it. So the Environmental Resources Board, I think, is an important way for us to implement, not just talk about actions. I do think relative to the comments earlier, we heard about the Gulfstream situation. I think there was some misunderstanding. Nothing happens. Okay, I'm a business person. I spent 40, 50 years since we have some new people here in the corporate world. And getting used to the government side, in the last 2 years, I've learned nothing happens without months of discussion and process and procedure and rules and the restrictions are amazing. Whether it's not just sunshine laws, it's not just the statutes that we have to follow, the processes, the charter. I mean, I could go on and on and on. In fact, and we also live to a code of ethics and so forth. So we're trying to bring transparency. On the other hand, it's great to have people attend the town meetings. It's great to have them at least go up online and see the video of the town meetings if you can't make it. But, you know, we try and schedule as much as we can. We publish what we can. It was published in this case by Coastal even. So I think we're reaching out. I do have one question for Marshall, town manager. And I know the mayor's not here and hope he does well. But in the meantime, can you tell us how the meeting with the condo presidents went?
Sure. Yeah, no, the Condo Presidents group expanded a little bit. So that was good. Had a few folks there. We talked about the budget, recertification, the ILA with Gulfstream, kind of looked at, you know, constructs and direction. So it was well received. It was a good discussion. Folks asked questions. Again, it was a heavy research and budget. Again, we talked about, you know, tax rate, what were the projects we completed, the projects going forward. Is the same presentation David and I have been giving the commission, the FAB. It's the same meeting, but it went well received. And you know, the focus was on, you know, recertification and what that means. And wouldn't you know it, seaweed came up too. A couple of the condo folks were like, you know, I guess a lot of the residents are, you know, pushing back. We are having a banner year or a bumper crop of sargassum this year. But it seems like every year we say that, doesn't it? It seems like every year since 18, it just like gets a little bit worse. I think 21 was an okay summer, but then here we are back at it again. So it was well received. It was a good meeting.
So that, again, that's another example of community outreach that we're trying to not just rely on town meetings and rely on people attending when they really can't, but through these meetings with the condo presidents to share with them, as well as the manager's minute, which goes out every so often. It gives you an update. So I think the intent by this commission, and I'll speak for the commission in this way only, is that we're working together as really well as a team in trying to address the issues, concerns of the citizens, representing all the citizens, and then trying to communicate as best we can. Can we improve? Absolutely. You can always improve anything. Okay. But by the same token, I think we are making some significant progress. Okay. On another subject that I wanted to mention is, I think I covered it. Just going down my list here. I'm good. Thank you.
Evelyn?
No comments today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, going back, I forgot to ask about one thing concerning our board appointment. I know we voted on everything already, but it was the fact that she's not a registered voter, and I couldn't read her comments here, hand penciled in. Does that
Not a
apply at all?
citizen
I
is
just
what it
was,
says.
right, I know, but I was just double checking.
For non-quasi judicial boards, you have flexibility to do seasonal residents, if you will.
Okay, I just.
So long as they own, I think we said, as long as they own property, they can do that. Quasi judicial, the planning board,
Right.
Board of Appeals and Adjustments, you got to be full-time voting registered
Correct,
member.
but I couldn't read her handwriting under that. So that's, just wanted to revisit that briefly. Okay, two things. I did post photos. I was given notice to jump on a Florida Fish and Wildlife boat a week ago to I'm out there almost every weekend anyway on our boat, but to attend a group with Representative Mike Caruso, who organized this with Fish and Wildlife. He is looking at the speeds and the safety of the intercoastal waterway and canals. And so we took out 2 boats that day, that morning early, with not traffic, a heavy traffic day involved, to review the signs and the channel markers. And it was a beautiful trip. We were out 2 hours. And we did see that a lot of the signs on the intercoastal, which I've got posted, I don't know if it's a slideshow available here, but they're posted online. Pardon? Oh, so go ahead. Okay, so go ahead and click on the signs then if you could. This sign, there are 2 sets of signs. One includes the 2 different speed limits of 25 miles an hour and 30 miles an hour with the dates. Many of these signs you can't read until you're right up on it, and you'd have to slow down from the speed limit to read them. Not a good situation for boaters who don't even pay attention, frankly, very often, because they're out there to have fun. Actually, a friend of mine was stopped by our patrol boat 3 weeks ago, and his answer was quite interesting to me. I didn't even know the speeds out here. And I think that's true of a lot of people. They just don't know through no fault of their own. They should know, but they're out there to have a good time. And he said, sorry. And our staff apparently was terrific and got a good review. But Representative Caruso is interested in having these signs reviewed, and he's taking the lead on this. He questioned why we have 2 different speed limits. Is the 5 miles an hour really necessary? We discussed lowering them, which would be great in terms of safety and manatees and possible kayakers, which actually the Army Corps does not like small craft out in the intercoastal. They've taken that position, certainly on weekends with heavy boating weekends. But the reason of the 2 different speed limits are for manatees. So Representative Caruso may be requesting a study of this. Does the 5 miles an hour really matter? I will tell you from personal experience and input, some boats do not even trim out or level off until they hit 30, 35. So sometimes you have to continue in your forward motion, and with the weight of the boat being in the back with engines and gasoline, and you try to balance that with people up front if you have a bow rider, the front of the boat carrying persons. But sometimes you have to reach 35, 38 to really trim the boat. So you could reach it briefly and then drop it down to 30. But that's a problem for some of these craft, and that has to be viewed. If you're on the intercoastal, you'll notice at night there's a lot of boats out there. There's speed boats that go past my house 50 miles an hour at night when they can. And by the time you want to report them, they're in Pompano or somewhere. It's crazy. You can't, with windows closed and the TV loud, you cannot not hear your television with these boats passing. I'm sure you've all witnessed that. If you go to the next slide. So Representative Cruz is looking at the slides, the speed limits, the location of the signs, the condition. Some of them are not legible. This is a very cool boat. This boat it's got equipped with everything on it, life-saving. They say they rescue 1 manatee a week on the average. This boat is ocean going and able to achieve high speeds quickly. It's very cool because it does not need to be trimmed. They can hit their speeds and it pretty much stays level because of the engineering of the boat. They start up at 0 to 30 and they can hit that speed and hardly need to level off at all. It's air conditioned. It's got life-saving equipment, sonar, radar, everything. And that was just an amazing craft. This is parked at the Boca Raton police boat location, which allowed us to have access. If you hit the next slide, this shows our motley crew here with our officer Riggs who captained the boat. But you'll see this is a very better readable sign than the previous one. This shows that you hit minimum wake before a bridge because you need to be at 0 wake underneath the bridges and going through at 50 feet out. And this was Representative Caruso, Emily Gentile, and Steve, whose last name escapes me, of Boca Condo Association. And they, of course, have a number of condos and people living on the water in Boca Raton. They have both speed limits and no wake zones in their condo groups, and they're interested in looking at what they can do for the speed limits for their pursuant to their docks, marinas, canals. And so this was taken just north of the Spanish River Bridge. Also, you'll note, you don't see it here, but a lot of times in these photos, you can see no one out today, but a lot of times evenings, mornings, and weekends, you'll see people fishing under that bridge, particularly at the spot west of us. And if you go through the bridge at a wake, they're sitting there with their bobbers or fly, casting. And that's a problem with the people on the sides of the waterway as well. And then the last photo just shows Representative Caruso asking the other craft, we were on the non-air conditioned boat, which is fine, asking it to travel from 0 to 30, full force. And it reached that in a matter of just, I would say, 15, 20 seconds. So it's just, FWC is amazing. I once was on our boat and we were near Boynton Beach Inlet, and a whole pod of dolphins, probably 20 of them, were sort of circling north of the inlet. And we called FWC saying, we don't know if they've lost their way or they're just traveling normally. I've never seen dolphins on the intercoastal. And within 20 minutes, they had a boat there trying to kind of lead the dolphins out the inlet. So it was very cool. I just want to give them credit. I know they've been staffed down over the years, but we will see. We'll get reports in from Representative Caruso. And one other thing, FWC said they were thrilled, totally thrilled when we dropped our boat in the water that we actually contributed to the safety in this area. And that was very cool to hear. So thank you, Chief, for your guys and women on that crew. So that's it for me. You'll hear more of this forthcoming. Secondly, I attended League of Cities general meeting last week, and Joe Abruzzo did speak to that. And I have a report coming to the commission for the next meeting, a briefly written up report. They've got new facilities for the public to access their site. He's a comptroller for the county, and he's got additional staff and resources that will be sent to Marshall to get out to the commission and the citizens at that time. Thank you. Thanks for everyone's attention.
Thank you very much. I don't have any comments. So we move to item 13 on the agenda, the town attorney's report. Anything?
Just what I've already said. It's win at the Ems Council.
Okay, yeah, good luck. And town manager's report?
Yes, I've got a few items. I don't, since we're going to talk about it on Thursday, I'll work to address everyone's concerns relating to the Gulfstream ILA. With that, the other one part of it, what I think I can do that might help is if there's something I'm going to just talk to you about that might lead to something like this, that's a bigger, I'll just write it under the manager's report as a sub item, because sometimes that just isn't ready or right for an agenda item. I don't have anything to give you. I'm just talking about what I'm talking or being asked about. So when it's a big ticket item like that, to just make sure everybody knows what's going on, I'll just put a sub item that here it is, and that maybe will help improve that transparency. Again, working that continuous improvement model that we're deploying. We should be able to do that. But hopefully we should be able to answer all these questions easily on Thursday. The water treatment plant passed its annual health inspections. Everything's great, no problems. Valves, pumps, motors, water quality, everything is per state and federal code and laws. I'm proud to announce that we are recertified. The police department went through accreditation. Not that I've been to a lot of police accreditation meetings afterwards, but they said they couldn't find anything wrong. They just couldn't find anything. And they spoke to the leadership of Chief Hartman and the commitment of the team. And I thought you should know that, we passed accreditation. And they were all very thrilled that they were part of the team to review ours. And they just couldn't believe the buy-in from top to bottom in the police department and their commitment to each other. So Chief Hartman, thank you. It was a really good thing to hear as the town manager to sit down and have the auditor say, we tried, we couldn't find anything. So Chief Hartman, thank you. Also on the audit side, we had indicated, and this is something I should put on there just so folks know. So the Inspector General were decided that this year would be the cybersecurity audit season. So they came in, conducted an audit of our IT operations. Very proud of our Node IT, our consultant, and Teresa. No problems. They, we're a model for every community to do for their IT systems and structures, how we handle our servers, how we have 3 different ways of backups. We have encryptions, we have constant monitoring, we have a hosted service for our Microsoft. So they actually, to the point, asked our consultant, like, could you actually help us when we do our audits? Because, how did you do all of this stuff? So rest assured, we're quite protected. And as I said, there's a policy issue would come up. Our IT policy is a little dated from 15. So we clean that up and I'll circulate that back out. But no problems with the Inspector General. So I was excited that they won't be able to say anything outside of good things about us. Again, I had indicated on our meeting on Thursday, we had, as we've gone through all of our budget meetings, an economic, the one-time budget neutral economic relief payment to staff to work them for the impacts from the COVID, from the inflation, and we were going to do that. Unfortunately, Florida statute kind of puts a lot of limitations on our ability to help our employees in that fashion. So I'm most likely leaning towards removing it from Thursday. We don't seem to have a mechanism or a trigger to allow us to do that. However, I will explore with legal. What a lot of these communities did is they use some of their COVID dollars, some of those ARP dollars, where you can, because of the impact of COVID, cost of living disruptions to the economy, you could use those dollars to give payment to employees during that period of time. So, and we never closed. So we're like probably the only one that didn't. We never closed and kind of worked our way through it. We didn't remote everybody. So I think we have some good justifications. If I can dial that in for you, I will bring it. But the way it's currently written and hoped, I just can't see a mechanism. Maybe in the future if we wanted to do it, but that's not something we wanted a one time. So that was my trigger. The statute says if you decide to do it, you got to have this whole process and structure. And we're not putting a bonus program in. That's not what we wanted to do as a one time. So we'll have to figure something else out. But we're working on that, but I'll probably have to remove that. It's unfortunate, but hopefully I could find something in the spirit that you guys were looking for, maybe using some of the COVID dollars. Other than that, again, budget's looking good. Everything's moving forward. Again, I would tell everybody, Thursday, if you can be here, that would be great. Dorothy Jack's coming in. She does a great presentation on the market conditions in Palm Beach County, what we can expect and what we experienced this year in the market, what she's looking out to the future might look like. So that's always a good presentation. Again, our budget is in great financial shape. Our financial condition has never been stronger. We're in a great position to exercise everything to succeed in the fire service. So that's, everything's in place and going quite well. That's it.
I have a quick question
Sure.
About the interlocal agreement with Gulfstream for the building permit services. How many times will we review that? So we'll review it on Thursday. Is that it? Or is there like a second reading or something?
No, with the interlocal, it's one, unless
It's
there's
just one.
things, because I know the mayor had reached out to me and said he had some comments, but was physically unable to come and deliver those comments, some changes or tweaks. Some in the spirit and intent of what some of the folks were saying today. Again, it's finally an agenda item because it's finally right for you to review it. Like there's an agreement to look at, take a look at, cut it. So we will, take a look at it. If you're comfortable with the structure, fine. If we need to tweak it, we tweak it and bring it back. So that we're starting the formal review process in there. I know I've got David looking into the financial stuff and some of the concepts that are missed that we haven't communicated, which we'll do on Thursday is, we're not hiring staff. I think there's a misconception that we're hiring people. No, that fixed cost will be shared when we bring additional business on. So Gulfstream will start taking care of or paying portions of our fixed costs. So there is an administrative charge in dollars that will be covered and the administrative charge increases. So David is working through the numbers to more clearly articulate that message, but we're not hiring full-time staff. It's just the variable cost cap just goes up. If there's more inspections, more cap, less inspections, less cap. So we'll make that presentation. I want everyone to, kind of digest it and address each of those comments, but we'll do that on Thursday and work. Right, Jeff was prepared today, but we'll work through and just address each of those steps and concerns. And maybe you don't like the contract. Maybe there's a provision you don't like. This is when we start, going on. And I know that Alex and with the attorney's office spent a lot of time on it. He didn't like the initial draft. So we're just, machinations, if you will.
Okay, great. Anything else?
Comment. And again, this is for the audience and for those who are watching and will watch. What you just heard from the town manager, I think, is emblematic, a good summary of the level of team effort that's going on. I mean, police department, we're the safest town in Florida. We have a great team. The advisory boards, we're filling them out. They are part of the community and they are extending our reach. The building department, I mean, here we're trying to look at an opportunity to help a neighbor that will help us, that will be an advantage for us. Yet, yes, we did have a little misunderstanding. We've been talking about this for 3 months, it seems, that all of a sudden, we're out of control. That's not the case. We're not going to do anything stupid relative to an opportunity. In this case, it's a 90-day kind of opportunity that's been an LOI more than anything, but it will lead hopefully to a contract that is advantageous for both of us with guardrails. The other thing is, water sewer, everything's up and running. It's in great shape and other towns have problems. IT services, the cooperation with the county, we're building a fire EMS. And you've heard from an incredible review by the town manager, all the elements to create an awesome EMS fire department are coming together. So right now, we can also read in papers and so forth that there are other towns very close to us that are having one failure, one problem, one crisis after another. We really don't have that. And it's a great time right now for Highland Beach. So I just wanted to clear that up and to also give some credit to our town manager and the town team that's making all that happen. That's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And on that, I think we can adjourn. So this meeting is adjourned at 3:15. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Usually, the proposal.